welcome. You're watching FII. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Now, today's program is something that it's around an issue that has been buzzing for quite some time. We're talking about the issue of 5G. Now, while all the millennials are wanting to get their hands on 5G as soon as possible, especially in the environment that we're all living in, remember, working from home, schooling from home as well. And then recently came a petition by Juhi Chawla, where she said that this will be the end of us. This is not just carcinogenic, her petition says, but will lead to several other problems, not just in humankind, but in the flora and fauna as well. This entire hearing in the High Court came into news for all the wrong reasons, really, with people actually logging in, fans of Juhi Chawla, and singing along her best of tunes. But that aside, we thought, let's try and decode for you what is this entire 5G phenomena. Is it really as harmful as being talked about in this petition? What cues can we take from WHO, from other countries across the world? So without any further delay, let's get into our explainer. So let's first tell you what is Juhi Chawla's petition all about. Well, she moved to the Delhi High Court saying that no person will be able to avoid exposure 24 hours a day, 365 days in a year, and the levels of radiation coming out of 5G are 100 times greater than what already exists today. Her petition also says that this will threaten to provoke serious, irreversible impact on humankind, permanent damage as well to all on Earth and the ecosystem. The plea currently being heard by the High Court. But before we get into that, that's still sub judice, let's tell you what exactly is 5G. The latest network of wireless technology, 5G, stands for fifth generation, said to be the fastest, the most advanced network out there. 5G really is the future, as they say. And at a time when the world revolves around data, cloud computing, working from home, school from home, who doesn't want fast internet really? So, it gets really this fast by producing electromagnetic radiation. It's said to be a game changer because of the sheer speed of transfer, download it provides, and thus the frequency it uses is also much higher. To put it simply, it is said to be revolutionary because, look at this example. To download a 2-hour movie, a 3G network would take about 36 hours. A 4G network would take about 6 minutes. And guess how much 5G will take? 3.6 seconds. And this entire journey from 1G to 5G has happened in a phenomenal time. Let's also sort of jog your memory on that. Remember 1G, in fact, let's begin with that. The first analog cell phone to enter the world. This is what it looked like back then in the days. Then came 2G. New features like SMS, voicemail came on our mobile handsets. Then came 3G, higher data transfer rates, web browsing, image sharing, the much talked about, and the controversial GPS location tracking as well. And then came 4G. We're all on it right now. Broadband delivery, deep web functioning, all got into our smartphone. It really became our life. And now we're all set to get into a 5G mode, the fifth generation of wireless technology. But users will know this as the claims at the moment are, it's the fastest, most robust technology that the world has ever seen. This means quicker downloads, much lower lag, significant impact on how we live, work, play. The connectivity benefits of 5G are expected to make businesses more efficient, give consumers access to more information faster than ever before, connecting cars, smart communities, industrial IoT. We'll get into that in the program as well. All of this and our lives are set to revolve around 5G network of the future. But then, what is the status of it here in the country? Well, it's not yet rolled out in India, but Airtel, Reliance, Jio, Vodafone, Idea, they've all been given trial spectrum really, and the network is expected to go live by the end of this year, by the end of 2021. So if this is really such a big game changer, what are the concerns? The thing to remember here is this is not the first time these kind of concerns around 5G technology have actually come up. The arguments against him have emerged time and again in several parts of the world, and a whole community of scientists have debated against the technology's implementation, citing it as a health hazard for many. However, there is very limited research on frequencies used in 5G. Basically, the claim is that the mobile phone uses a frequency of 1.8 to 2.2 gigahertz that can cause tissue heating. Tissue heating, what is that? That's electromagnetic energy causing slight rise in the temperatures that can impact your brain, it can impact your body as well. In a 2018 study done by a US national toxicology program, they found clear evidence that 2 years of exposure of radio frequency radiation from cell phones increased cancer. But this was done on male rats and damaged the DNA in rats and mice of both the sexes as well. There was another study done by the International Agency of Research on Cancer in 2011. This time 30 scientists from 14 different countries got together and they concluded that electromagnetic energy fields are possibly carcinogenic to humans. So this is what study is saying. Let's go by what WHO has to say. Well, WHO on their website on the issue of exposure to 5G currently says that infrastructures that are around 3.5 gigahertz is similar from already existing mobile phone base stations. With the use of multiple beams from 5G antennas, exposure could be more variable as a function of location of users and their usage as well. Given that 5G technology is currently in an early stage of deployment, the extent of a change in exposure is also being looked into by WHO. It goes on to say that until now, no adverse health effect linked with exposure to wireless technologies has been found. As frequencies increase, there is less penetration into the body tissues and absorption of the energy becomes actually confined to only the surface of the body, only your skin and eye. All this is, remember, WHO saying, provided that the overall exposure remains below the international guidelines, no consequence for public health is actually anticipated. But having said that, WHO also says that they are currently conducting a health risk assessment from exposure to all sorts of radio frequencies, the entire range which includes 5G, but that study, we'll have to wait for that until the end of 2022. So that's what WHO is saying. We've also got for you a sort of world view on where all this network is already under use, and this includes most of the countries in the world except one. We'll talk about that on the program as well, but let me first introduce my panel and try and get a perspective from them. We are joined by first Sanjay Kapoor. He is the former CEO of Bharti Airtel. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Kapoor. First up, lots of concerns, not the first time they have been raised as well. I'm sure in your time at Bharti Airtel, you must have addressed these as well. I remember doing a story several months back upon how the 2G and the 3G towers in the national capital area were also causing cancer. And that time, I remember the CEO of Bharti, in fact, and even the heads at this point had said that I'm happy to have an antenna in my house to sort of get rid of the fears that it causes any sort of cancer or any related issue. But seeing what WHO is also saying right now, not giving a clear sort of go-ahead, saying we need to study more. Have you studied more? What did you find?
So Sonal, you are absolutely bang on that this is an age-old problem, and even during the era of 2G and 3G, we had activists who had raised these issues not only in India but in many other parts of the world. And you know, every time the debate came to an end because there was no empirical evidence to substantiate the claims of this causing radiations to an extent where there were harmful or carcinogenic impacts on humans. This was never established, and therefore the technology kept migrating from one level to another level.
But if I can interrupt and say this, 5G is a very different technology. It's not a software upgrade from 4G. This is a different tech altogether.
Yes, you know, and I'm sure you appreciate that, you know, we all having been in this industry for over 2 decades, understand what 5G is. In fact, I just wanted to substantiate, I was listening to you as well. It is just not about speed. It is about low latency, and it is about Internet of Things. And let me quickly explain that to you. Yes, high speed is required. As you move on to denser applications, as you start dealing with 4K content and 16K content, we are already at high definition, and we need higher speed at that stage. But low latency is only possible with 5G, which is not possible with 4G. For example, autonomous cars, surgeries which require no latency at all, gamings which are real-time gamings, and many more applications that will come in. And finally, Internet of Things. We all talk about connected devices, and we'll be surrounded by 20 devices to an individual in times to come. If I was to place 1 million devices in 5 square kilometers, 4G cannot deal with it. 5G can deal with it. So if we really have to migrate to that world of Internet of Things and machine-to-machine learning and so on and so forth, we will really have to migrate to 5G. And therefore, it works on higher frequencies. They are available. You need at least 100 megs of spectrum per operator. But the fact is that somebody will have to develop an empirical evidence where one says that 5G is more harmful compared to 4G, and then take a call to say, okay, this technology we don't need. But I think the train has already left the station. India is a laggard, but all the developed parts of the world, which have a lot more stringent norms on health, etc., have already imbibed this technology. I sit on the board of an international company, and I advise so many companies across the globe, and there they have deployed 5G and have been deploying it for more than a year and a half now. Right? So the train's really left the station over there. So if somebody has to say, no, it's not applicable, they'll have to roll back. And for all you know, most of the 4G eventually will get replaced. Yes, 4G and 5G will work together, but eventually 3G is dead, 2G is dead. Will we go back to the previous era, or will we keep moving from 5G to 6G from here?
Okay.
Fact of the matter is that the first level of technologies that came in lasted for 10 years before we brought in a replacement. Today, the technology gets replaced in 4 or 5 years. I promise you, by the time we are midway into 5G, we'll be talking 6G.
All right. I actually wanted to specify that, and I interrupted you because I want viewers to actually take note of that more than you and I. But happy to have your perspective on board. Thank you so much for joining us, Sanjay Kapoor, on FII. Let me move to my other panelists now. We've got Pankaj Mohindroo joining us. He's the chairman of India Cellular and Electronics Association. We've got Ashutosh Srivastava. He's the advocate in Supreme Court and the one fighting Juhi Chawla's case. And we also have back with us on the program, very delighted to have Dr. Mahajan back with us to get a sort of unbiased view, just a technical view on where things stand, not listening to parties, but science and medicine over here. Okay, so let me give you the first word, Dr. Mahajan. I just laid out some of the concerns that have been raised on the 5G issue. Do you have yours? What is your take on this?
Well, thank you, Sonal, for having me back. And let me say that these concerns about non-ionizing radiations have been there. I've come on NDTV multiple times, I think the last 15 years, the program's been done by different anchors where this has been a concern, and rightly so, especially since from the early 2000s, today we actually use our cell phones so much more. It's a ubiquitous device, and from using it for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours a week, we are now using it maybe 6-8 hours a day.
Yeah, my average screen time is 10 hours a day.
That's you need to reduce it. I must tell you that.
Okay.
So, having said that,
you can use it for 24 hours.
And you yourself have mentioned the WHO saying that even for 4G and earlier, even though there is a slight matter of concern, but there is no clinching evidence, which we should have got in 25 years, that these 2G, 3G and 4 have been around. We haven't got that. These cell phone towers are there, they've existed, and there is no known evidence which says that there is a cause and effect relationship. As regards the cell phone itself, the instrument, and the duration of use per day, there have been some reports where they say it may actually lead to development of brain tumors. That again hasn't been substantiated by studies done over a long period of time.
Right. But Dr. Mahajan, I want to ask you, sorry, just to interrupt over there. When you say cell phones and longer duration of use of cell phones, there are some studies that related to brain tumor. At the end of the day, it is just a device which is emitting radiations, right? So wouldn't one think that the two are actually related?
No, see, when you have a cell tower, that is actually very distant from you. And as you go a few meters away from the cell tower, the energy drops dramatically, number one. Number two, there are actually regulations in place as to what level of power, let me put it crudely, these cell towers can have. It can't go beyond that. These are international norms. And I do believe that even in India, these are very stringently followed.
I'm very happy you've mentioned this. I'm very happy you've mentioned about the distance between the tower, because I want to bring in Pankaj Mohindroo on this point. Just for the benefit of our viewers, again, I want to say 5G is basically a limited coverage area, right? 5G tech, how it works is that you need to be closer. You need to be closer to it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it does not transmit longer or large areas. But if you want a good 5G network, you have to be in the vicinity. So you have to be somehow closer to it. There are lots of demos being done with speed tests all over the world, and I was watching some before the program where it dramatically dropped the minute you went around the corner. So if you want to access 5G, you will have to be closer to the tower. Isn't that a risk?
No. See, unfortunately, all that we've discussed is completely irrelevant.
How?
First of all, this is non-ionizing radiation, which doesn't change the cell structure. And the appropriate authority for this is the International Agency on Research on Cancer. Okay? Second is that the two things which radiate, the cell phone and the tower, the International Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection Agency has norms which for mobile phones are 2 watts on 10 grams of tissue. 10 grams is the smallest organ in the body, that is the human eye. And the second is on the towers, that's more complex. Now, in India, we have standards which are 1,000% more stringent, which is only followed in 3 countries in the world, which is the US, South Korea and Canada, which is that our standard is 1.6 watt of radiation on 1 gram of tissue. So all that we've spoken...
And duration?
Pardon?
And the duration of that?
It doesn't matter, because see, in non-ionizing radiation what happens, non-ionizing radiation is what you get in the microwave oven or in the television, etc. Okay? So this can only marginally raise the temperature. 1.6 watts on 1 gram of is a very tiny radiation. When you are standing next to the microwave oven, you are exposed much more. But what happens is that it raises the temperature. It doesn't change the cell structure. So all that we've discussed about 5G requirements, etc., is all unnecessary. India has standards on the CPE, which is the handset, and on the tower, which is 10 times more stringent than rest of the world, which was a very horrible overreach because of, the shrillness and that, the mob rules India, as they say.
Okay.
Because of these norms, the designing of phones for India, for example, is a very difficult job. Because While in the US and South Korea, you have...
I get that. I just put a graphic also on screen which talks about most of the countries around the world which are actually using 5G. Belgium being the only one which
It doesn't matter whether it is 5G,
which
4G,
have
2G,
banned
1G.
it, and Belgium is very crucial. Why is also
No, it doesn't
what
matter.
we will...
It doesn't. It's the amount of non-ionizing radiation which matters. The technology doesn't matter. You can have 10G also.
No, but I'm not sure if you answered the question on the time of exposure and the duration of exposure and how that's going to change.
I don't think you understood fundamentally.
But one second. I'll come back to you. I'll come
about.
back to you. I quickly have to take a break. I'll come back on the other side, and we'll have some more questions.
Introducing MediBuddy Gold. MediBuddy, your health buddy.
Welcome back. We're discussing the controversial 5G network. Is there merit in the case that has been put in by Juhi Chawla? We have her lawyer with us today as well, Ashutosh Srivastav. Ashutosh, I understand that there have been legal sort of issues being discussed in the court, but I would like you to step away from that for a minute and take us through what exactly is the evidence behind this plea that you've put forward.
See, we are talking about a proper research, proper test about, this 5G radiation, and then it should be launched. We are not objecting to the 5G, the launch, but obviously there has to be a proper test conducted so that, because it may cost crores of lives of this country.
What are you basing this on?
As we know,
what is the science that you're basing this on?
See, in 2011, as we know that WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer, they also had reviewed the same, and they had a detailed range of, EMF radiations that was from 30 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz, and that was tested on humans as well as the rats, and it concluded that the radiations are possibly carcinogenic to humans. That is, it can cause cancer. Now, in 2018 also...
So you're basing it on the International Agency for Research on Cancer, right? I spoke about it in my explainer as well.
Yes.
The 2011 study is what you're basing this on.
It's completely wrong. What he's saying is erroneous.
No, forget what he's saying. Tell me the International Agency for Research on Cancer in 2011, they actually say possibly carcinogenic.
Let me explain to you.
I want to respond to that.
Let me explain to you. IARC, the category 1 is tobacco, alcohol, and 2-3 other products, right? Which means they are definitely carcinogenic. There is a category 2B, right? In which there is coffee, pickles, and this technology. That there is no evidence whether it is carcinogenic or not. So please tell the gentleman not to give canards on a national TV channel, please.
No, he's just quoting. You can calm down.
I'll explain it. No, he's quoting wrong. He's quoting wrong.
He's not wrong when he says.
You may have a automobile.
I'm happy that you put out the categories over there to get a perspective on that story. But what he's saying is, quick last word to Dr. Mahajan, please.
Well, what Mr. Mohindroo has said is right. That there are so many so-called innocuous things that are in the list, along with electromagnetic radiation. But also, as the final word, I would say that we live and learn. It's been a long time that this technology has been around. We don't have evidence as yet. And as the, radio frequency increases, and we get nearer the, infrared, which is really heat, which is the matter, I would say that we should limit our use of the cell phone or such devices as much as we can, use hands-free, be cautious. We don't have any evidence right now, that is for sure. But whether 20 years from now we learn something more, that we'll know only in the future. Right now, as the expert committees and the experts say, there is no scientific evidence which links 5G or 4G. 5G has been around just 2 years, but the earlier radiation with cancer.
Couldn't have said it any better. I think it's a good note to end the program on. I'm sorry, I'm completely out of time. We'll come back to this later, hopefully. Thank you so much for joining us on this program. We will get back to this issue because there's really so many questions still around that. That's it for today, though.